even if it's speech you disagree with. If our new reality is that a president can disappear an opposition protester with no charges filed against them, we are not America any longer. Today it's Mahmoud Khalil. Tomorrow it's me or you.
He's right. You keep acting like Democrats aren't controlled opposition. Their function is not to disagree or obstruct with the Republicans in any way. Dude, what are you talking about? I know that the Democrats de facto operate as the controlled opposition, but this is one. But Christopher Murphy, who apparently had a relatively human reaction to what the government is currently doing to Mahmoud Khalil.
A young man by the name of Mahmoud Khalil, an immigrant and a legal permanent resident of the United States, is being held right now in prison, even though no criminal charges have been filed against him. And I want to tell you why that should matter to every single American. Khalil is a recent graduate of Columbia University. He opposed Israel's military operation in Gaza. He has deep animus toward Israel's policies and the U.S. support for those policies. He helped organize the protests over Gaza at his university.
Notice how he's not saying it's anti-Semitic and saying he has deep animus towards Israel's policies and America's support for Israel's policies, because that's correct. That is framing the issue on the boundaries of truth. That is not greatly overemphasizing lies that the Republicans are telling in an effort to justify this clear-cut violation of free speech. If Biden were in power, he'd be saying it was anti-Semitic. Let's be real. Probably. You're not wrong about that. Chris Murphy, post-Kamala Harris defeat, has certainly changed his attitude a little bit. But, you know, just like with my support for Al Green and the actions that he took at the joint congressional address, I'm not going to immediately slap down Democrats. The reason why I'm not going to is because whether I agree with them or whether I think they're being cynical or not doesn't matter in this process, because we have to lock in and actually expect them to do the right thing, to demonstrate moral courage, to actively fight back against this administration. That's why urging your congressional representatives to you know, pressuring your congressional representatives to do the right thing in times when they're necessary, like not passing this bill, is the right thing to do, and in many instances, the only thing to do. That's the only shot we have. That's the only thing we can do in this situation. That doesn't mean that you should just like stop and be like, all right, well, I'm supporting the Democratic Party, and then that's the end all be all. We're good. That's not what I'm saying at all. But if Democrats do say the right things, I'm not going to be a person who criticizes them in the moment, because I understand the necessity. I understand the need for them to do the right things.
Last year, you can disagree with his views or his politics, but there is no evidence he has broken any law. But last weekend, Trump officials entered his apartment and took him into custody. They brought him to a detention facility in New Jersey at first, but when his family went to visit him, he wasn't there. For a while, his family and his lawyer had no idea where he was. They eventually found out that he was being held in a detention facility in Louisiana, and that's where he still is today. In dictatorships, they call this practice being disappeared. No charges, no claims of criminal behavior. The White House doesn't claim he did anything criminal. He's in jail because of his political speech. And here's why everybody should care. In America, your political speech is protected, whether or not the president likes what you say. But today, if you're loyal to Donald Trump, your speech is going to be protected, even if it's hate speech. You can be Marco Ellis, an employee of Doge, who said he, quote, was before it was cool, and, quote, normalize Indian hate. And the vice president of the United States will tweet in your defense. But if you are disloyal to Trump, or you're organizing against Trump's political agenda, your speech could be criminalized. You could find yourself in jail. Now, Trump chose to begin by disappearing a Palestinian immigrant, hoping that his place of birth and his immigrant status would just cause people to look the other way. But
which it did. For right-wingers, that was all it took. Well, for right-wingers, all it took was that Trump is doing it. That's all it was for many right-wingers like Asmongold and whatnot. I do still believe, here's why I think it's important for Chris Murphy and others to say this. and not whatever the Chuck Schumer was doing yesterday. Because I do think that Americans don't like when the government goes, yeah, fuck free speech, okay? But Americans, myself included, we're all kind of stupid. So we need someone to go on television and say exactly what's going on with no ands, ifs, or buts. Just directly address what the fuck is happening. That is why we need the Democrats, whether I agree with them or disagree with them. That is why I criticize the Democrats. And that is precisely the reason why when a Democrat comes out and says the correct thing, okay, without sheltering the public from the truth or without lending any credence to the falsehoods and claims being made by the Republicans, I will celebrate that. Do you understand? Because without the entirety of the Democratic Party chirping in the same way that Chris Murphy is right here, most Americans are only going to hear the likes of Asmongold, the likes of Fox News, the likes of Marco Rubio. They're only going to hear Scott Jennings. They're only going to hear that perspective. Do you understand? And then they're going to think, yeah, this isn't a fucking severe violation of free speech. This is a terrorist getting pack watched. Do you see what I'm saying?
Cannot. Because once it becomes normal for the regime to disappear people simply for protest against the regime's policies, once a citizen or a resident of America can be locked away with no charges against them simply because they protested, there is no going back for America. Even if you're a hardened Trump supporter, this practice should cross the line for you. Even if you disagree with Khalil's views, this practice should cross the line for you. This has nothing to do with supporting Trump. This is about supporting an American value.
100%.
Maybe the most important American value, protecting free speech, even if it's speech you disagree with. If our new reality is that a president can disappear an opposition protester with no charges filed against them, we are not America any longer. Today it's Mahmoud Khalil. Tomorrow it's me or you.
He's right. You keep acting like Democrats aren't controlled opposition. Their function is not to disagree or obstruct with the Republicans in any way. Dude, what are you talking about? I know that the Democrats de facto operate as the controlled opposition, but this is one instance where the fucking dude in front of you is not behaving in that way. So my hope is that if you give people like this their flowers in this specific moment, not in any other circumstance, okay? Because they're playing. Look, I don't know how to describe this, okay? I don't know how to describe this to people who just refuse to understand. I don't agree with Chris Murphy on much, okay? I think his support for populist leftist positions are cynical, but it doesn't fucking matter because Chris Murphy has the bully pulpit, maybe not the same to the same degree as the president, but he still has a platform. He still has power. And without people in positions of power, stop saying talk is cheap. Talk is not fucking cheap. Talk is very expensive. Shut your stupid bitch ass mouth up, okay? Shut the fuck up. Talk is not cheap in this situation. Because the point is, Americans are stupid and they need to hear people say this so they understand what is actually happening. Because if the opposition party just buckles and shows their belly in the way that, like, for example, Chuck Schumer was speaking out on this issue saying, like, this guy's an anti-Semitic terrorist, but I don't think he should be deported unless you show me what laws he has violated or whatever the fuck. When you say that, you're conceding to the Republicans on the framing, so Americans don't even think about whether or not this is a violation of the First Amendment. They can only think about it if someone is fucking saying that is a clear-cut violation of the First Amendment. You need people to fucking say it. That's what you need. I'm not saying Chris Murphy's going to be our next president or some shit, okay? Fuck. If the entire field of conversation is dominated by right-wing misinformation, you'll always turn around and go, wow, how do we get here? Well, we got here because no fucking opposition party actually spoke out. Do you understand? This was my argument against immigration as well. The Democratic messaging on immigration was dog shit. Ugh. Where is the... I I have another thing. I want to show you a video of Mahmoud Khalil. Charlie Chong says, it actually disgusts me that so many people, and usually extremely privileged people, are saying things like he's an awful person, but you should support his free speech. Instead, he's someone who overcame and risked so much to protest genocide. So that's who you're talking about. Here, let's hear from him about his background and his story. This is Mahmoud Khalil's background and his own story in his own words, how his family ended up in a refugee camp where he was born and his aspiration for a free Palestine. This clip is from The Encampments, which features Mahmoud. It was set to be released this year by Watermelon Pictures and executive produced by Macklemore. We're releasing it today to counter the torrent of lies being told about him. Follow the links below to sign the petition for his freedom and to make a donation to his family. This is what Breakthrough News posted.
Raised in a Palestinian refugee. I was born and raised in a Palestinian refugee camp in southern Damascus in Syria. My family's history in Palestine actually goes back to as long as my grandparent could trace it. They lived in a very small village right next to Tiberias. Mostly they were farmers. My grandmother, she used to tell us that she had Jewish neighbors. They would share a piece of land where they would farm it. Tiberias was one of the first cities that the Zionists targeted in 1948 with ethnic cleansing. In April 1948, a month before the Nakba, the Zionist militias, they burned one of their villages. When they heard the news about it, they had to leave immediately. Some of the men went to fight. Big families, they had to go to Syria. My grandmother, she was pregnant at that time. She had to walk 40 miles. She gave birth on the way. When they arrived in the refugee camp, they thought it's just a matter of days until they would go back. They did not want to be killed because they heard about the horror stories across Tiberias. My dad was born in a tent. His family lived in that tent until like mid-70s when they upgraded to small structures. In the 90s, they finally kind of like had concrete buildings. To us, it was always a temporary home until we go back to Palestine.
Yeah, he's the terrorist here, not those who actively support the things, the state that did this to him and his family. There's an update on Dropsite. According to Fox News and much of the rest of the media, Mahmoud Khalil has called for the total eradication of Western civilization. Even if the allegation were true, it would be protected speech, but it's not. The phrase appeared on an Instagram post linked to an organization Khalil has been affiliated with. However, Dropsite News can report, based on conversations with a source with knowledge of the situation, that Khalil was not involved in any of the Columbia University apartheid divests Instagram posts. He may not have even seen this post and may not even be aware that this phrase is being used as a part of a Kafkaesque effort to deport him as national security threat. It doesn't fucking matter even if he did, though, because although he is multiple steps removed from a fucking Instagram post that was reposted, okay, guess what, dude? It's still constitutionally fucking protected. It's still constitutionally protected. In a government document obtained by the Washington Post detailing the legal case against Khalil, the U.S. State Department cites Section 237A4C1 of the Immigration and Nationality Act as the sole legal justification for his arrest and deportation. The statute allows for the deportation of a visa or green card holder if the Secretary of State has reasonable ground to believe an individual's presence or activities in the United States would have potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences for the United States. To justify Khalil's alleged threat to U.S. foreign policy and national security, his opponents is seized on an August 2024 Instagram post from CUAD. The post stated that CUAD was fighting for the total eradication of Western civilization. The full post from the Instagram account we already read, but I'll read it again. Okay. We are Westerners fighting for the total eradication of Western civilization. We stand in full solidarity with every movement for liberation in the global South. Our intifada is an internationalist one. We are fighting for nothing less than the liberation of all people. We reject every genocidal eugenicist regime that seeks to undermine the personhood of the colonized. As the fascism ingrained in the American consciousness becomes ever more explicit and irrefutable, we seek community and instruction for the militants of the global South who have been on the front lines in the fight against tyranny and domination which undergird the imperialist world order. Biplop Cholbe, revolution must continue. The caption beneath the post stated, "From the people of Hinds Hall, a statement of solidarity with the student movement in Bangladesh. Sheikh Hasina has been ousted by the people, but the revolution is not over. Long live the global intifada." The post has since been deleted. Dropsite News was not able to determine how soon it was removed. What is Columbia? A coalition of student organizations at the Columbia University advocating for financial divestment from companies profiting from Israeli apartheid, genocide, and occupation in Palestine. Can you imagine, like, claiming that if you are even tangentially involved, or if you saw a post, or if you liked a post that the American government doesn't like, then you can be deported? Like, I cannot believe how fucking little evidence they have for such a high bar to clear. Like, how little evidence they have for such an insanely high bar to clear for deportations. Like, I'm genuinely shocked at the incompetence demonstrated by this administration every single day, even on issues that they ostensibly care about, like fucking finding reasonable grounds to do like insane deportations. This is a pretty significant move, right? If you want to undermine the First Amendment and say, nope, we're setting a legal standard, a new precedent that you do not have First Amendment rights and protections if you are a legal permanent resident. That's a major difference in the way that things have taken place thus far. The very fact that they, one, initially thought that he was on a student visa and then found out that he was a green card holder is insane to me. Like, you didn't do basic research. If you wanted to make this person an example, there's probably a bunch of students that they could have made an example of. Like a student that has said some edgy shit, okay? A student that has come out and been like, yeah, long live the Intifada, I think Zionists don't deserve to live, or some shit like that, okay? That would still be legally protected, okay? Even if you are a student visa holder. But the very fact that they went after a green card holder thinking that he had a student visa, found out that he had a green card and still continued with this deportation process, and the person they went after, they couldn't find a single piece of evidence to even like massage the narrative, is shocking. They are shockingly incompetent at trying to use the pre-existing legal structure to undermine those protections. It is crazy. Do you think it's incompetence or boundary testing? I think it's incompetence. I mean, they are boundary testing, but they could have done it in a more competent manner, where they could have at least like been able to present a decent case for why they have to do this, and they didn't. That's what's incredible about this. Like that's also kind of shocking about this, you know? Here. But I guess it doesn't take much for dumbasses to still advocate for the complete erosion of free speech here in this country.
Thank you for that rousing welcome.
Love you, man.
Love you back. And really, that's the only thing. That's the only thing I have to say. I just want to thank all of you and express not just my admiration for your courage and your persistence in showing up for Mahmoud, for the rights and lives and dignity of
yeah, like all those people are also terrorists now. Why? I decided. Sorry. I'm denying you your fucking rights now. Why? I decided it. There's not much you can do about it. Sucks to suck.
Palestinian people in Gaza and beyond, for everything that you all have been doing for as long. And the last thing I'll say is, it doesn't matter how long this fight is going to last, because we know, and more importantly, Mahmoud and his family knows that you are with him. And that is a huge source of sustenance and courage. And that's what's going to enable us to keep doing this for as long as we need to until he's back.
If this was a student visa, people wouldn't care as much. The fact that it's a green card holder married to a U.S. citizen that's 8 months pregnant. Yeah, I mean, they should care. Even if he was on a student visa, they should care. It's still a fucking direct violation of the First Amendment. I'm just saying, it's shocking that they didn't even, it's shocking that they literally were like, oh, he's not a fucking student visa holder. Well, doesn't matter to me. Still, I'm going with it. It's fucking nuts. And they couldn't even figure out like they couldn't even they couldn't nab him on anything. Like they had nothing. It's just, I can't believe they couldn't even find like a heated moment or some shit. You know what I mean? It's not that significant, but because the crime that the government is committing here is egregious, but it is literally, I can't help but, you know, be surprised at their incompetence once again.